Hello there, welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Your headlines in the southeast this Friday evening. An inquest rules a man from Broadstairs did die as a direct result of being given contaminated blood by the NHS. His widow says it's a real victory.
I'm very pleased that the death certificate will record the true cause of death, that the contaminated blood products caused the illness, which caused him so much trouble all his life.
Remembering more than 1,000 rail workers who died in the world wars, Southeastern Trains rededicates a 100-year-old memorial to them.
Also tonight, a teenage racing driver crashes at Brands Hatch and walks away unscathed. We ask him if it's put him off motorsport.
And as the 2022 Poppy Appeal launches, how the Royal British Legion is supporting armed forces personnel and their families in the southeast. Good evening. A coroner today concluded that a man from Kent died as a direct result of being given contaminated blood decades earlier. The transfusion gave Steve Diamond hepatitis C and slowly destroyed his health.
Well, today's inquest verdict is a major victory for his widow, Sue Gorman, who campaigned with him to help expose the infected blood scandal within the NHS that came from treatments in the 1970s and 80s. Well, from Mid-Kent Coroner's Court, John Ryle has our report.
Sue Gorman has fought for 4 years to get the truth on her husband's death certificate. That he died in 2018, aged 62, as a direct result of being given contaminated blood as a young man with haemophilia. And today, Kent coroner Alison Summers gave her that verdict.
I'm very pleased that the death certificate will record the true cause of death, and that it's acknowledged that the contaminated blood products caused the illness, which caused him so much trouble all his life and did so much damage to our hopes of the future.
With Sue to hear the coroner's findings today, contaminated blood survivor and campaigner Mark Ward from Brighton.
Somebody dies every 96 hours from this. So when we say this historic 1970s, 1980s scandal, the effects are still being felt very really today, and more families are going to have to go through this. So with today's result and conclusion, families will have some reassurance that the death certificate will reflect the harm that their loved ones went through.
Steve's health started to decline at university in 1976. Mood swings, fatigue, brain fog and muscle pain followed. In 1997, he was finally diagnosed with hepatitis C, caused, the coroner ruled today, by contaminated blood received in 1976 or 1984. Today's verdict comes ahead of the report of the public inquiry into the infected blood scandal, which saw 30,000 people with haemophilia and other blood disorders given blood with HIV and hepatitis viruses. The coroner finished with a personal message to Sue Gorman. She said, "I hope you get the answers you're looking for when the contaminated blood inquiry reports, and that somehow you feel some sense of justice has been done." John Ryle, ITV News, Maidstone.
In other news, a British kayaker who set off from Dover more than a week ago has been rescued after clinging to a lifebuoy for 2 days. The unnamed 28-year-old was found holding onto the float by the crew of a Dutch ship. He reportedly survived by eating seaweed and mussels and is now recovering in hospital in France, where the crew said he'd suffered bruising, dehydration and severe hypothermia and was extremely weak when he was spotted mid-channel.
A man from Maidstone who bit through a policeman's ear has been jailed. Calvin Stemp, who's 25 and from Howley Way, was stopped when officers smelt cannabis. He responded by headbutting one of them, biting him on the ear and arm and then spitting in his face. Howley pleaded guilty at Maidstone Crown Court and was given 3 years and 2 months.
Now, tributes have been paid to railway workers in the southeast who lost their lives in the First and Second World Wars. A ceremony has taken place in Dover today to rededicate a memorial which was unveiled 100 years ago.
Well, it recognises the sacrifice of more than 1,000 employees who died in the conflicts. Southeastern, the train company, says it's committed to being a forces-friendly employer. Tom Savidis has our report.
Trains Armed Forces Covenant signing ceremony. A memorial service in what used to be a railway station in Dover.
A very, very important anniversary for us.
A statue is rededicated to rail workers who died in the First and Second World Wars.
This was a vital stepping off point for people leaving for France in World War I, from Dover Western Docks Station, which is where we are today. And in World War II, this was the place that the BEF, the British Expeditionary Force, arrived back at from being evacuated at Dunkirk. And 200,000 soldiers passed through here in May and June 1940 on their way back home.
Their homecoming is a warm one.
The statue was originally unveiled 100 years ago to the day in tribute to the 556 railway workers killed in the Great War. A further 626 lost their lives in the Second World War. Jack Gardner served in the army for 37 years, then joined Train Company South Eastern as a staff trainer. He says it's given him a new lease of life.
I hated being retired, absolutely hated it. So I had a really good job in the army, high pressure, lots to do. My life was sorted out, so I just stopped working. And I started the process of joining South Eastern, and they were really good because they gave me a job in my 60s.
Today's service was accompanied by the signing of the Armed Forces Covenant, which recognises the work companies do to employ and integrate former members of the armed forces.
Some great things going on inside South Eastern which are helping former service people to integrate into the business, to allow them to become reservists where they choose to do so, and to take advantage, if you like, of the opportunities the government brings.
This magnificent building was opened as a railway station during the First World War. It was responsible for transporting troops and munitions to the front line. It was originally known as Dover Marine Station and then Western Docks Station, but it closed in 1994. Today's ceremony recognising past sacrifices and the present-day contribution of former veterans turned railway workers. Tom Savides, ITV News, Dover.
A man from Shoreham is due to stand trial next year accused of murder. Deborah Gumbrell, who was 59, was found unconscious at her home on Northbourne Close on Monday. Her husband, 64-year-old James Gumbrell, wasn't present for a short hearing in Lewes this morning, but will go on trial next year.
The RSPCA is appealing for help after a pet kitten was shot in an Essex village. 11-month-old Edith was discovered bleeding from the stomach in her owner's garden in Great Wakering near Southend. She'd been shot with an air gun and had to be put to sleep. Last year, another cat was shot in the same village but survived.
A man who lit 2 flares at the Amex Community Stadium in Brighton and threw one onto the pitch has had his 3-year football ban extended. Adam Chisnell, who's 38 and from Warrington, was caught on CCTV in the away supporters section in May.
Now you're watching ITV News Meridian. Coming up on the programme.
Poppy time once again. Respect and pride echoing through the years for those who gave so much.
And all this damp, mild weather is working wonders for the woodland floor. I'll be back later with some very ethereal pictures.
More, of course, on our website today. itv.com/Meridian is the address. There's the phone number 0808 1010 095, and you can follow us on social media.
Now, believe it or not, the average family throws away £60 worth of food and drink each month. That's according to the Waste and Resources Action Programme.
But change could be on the way as more supermarkets ditch best before dates on fresh fruit and veg to tackle food waste.
And as Monitor Bob Simon reports, in this cost of living crisis, hard-pressed families need all the help they can get.
The labels may be small, but they've had a big influence on people's shopping habits over the years. Best before dates give you a guide to the quality of the food, but now many supermarkets are removing them from fresh fruits and vegetables. It's to encourage consumers to think before throwing food away, and people we spoke to at Hove Seafront haven't been put off.
I think you just have to use your own judgment and see if the food's still fresh. You can carry on eating it.
Yeah, I think it's just common sense, isn't it? I use it more for some things than others. Stuff like meat, fresh meat, obviously you've got to respect it maybe a bit more than vegetables, but I think on veg it's pretty much redundant. You should be able to tell whether it's usable or not, really.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to get rid of the best before dates, because you can use a bit of common sense and look at a piece of fruit and decide whether it's still good to eat or not. We don't need a date to tell us.
Millie works in a greengrocer where they don't use best before dates. She says you can often check the quality of fruit and vegetables by its texture and smell.
Having that real kind of physical kind of engagement with the food you're buying is so important in terms of knowing what's fresh. And you're actually kind of like really close to the fruit. You can chat to people, you can ask them how they use it, you can get inspiration, but also kind of ask them ask your shopkeeper, is this okay to eat? So I feel like in supermarkets this would be the kind of thing that would get thrown away because it's gone a bit kind of softer at the top, but it's actually still perfect to use.
The Waste and Resources Action Programme says scrapping the labels could go a long way in changing attitudes towards fruit and veg.
What we found is they're actually not helping us use our judgment of when fruit and veg is good to eat. And what that means is perfectly good food is getting chucked away in our homes instead of eaten. And the scale of that's really quite big. So we estimate around 7 million shopping baskets worth of fruit and veg each year is getting chucked away that wouldn't be if we could get rid of best before dates.
It could be argued the move is a potential money-saving exercise for supermarkets. But the British Retail Consortium, which represents them, insists it's for customers as well as the climate.
The key thing really is helping customers, and supermarkets know they need to help customers in these really tough times for every household in terms of making the budget go as far as possible. But also, by doing this, the supermarkets can play another role in cutting carbon in the food supply chain.
As more supermarkets choose to bin best before dates, we move closer to tackling food wastage at a time when we need to the most. Monique for Bob Simon, ITV News.
So it's just reminded me we've got to get some pumpkins before the weekend. It's carving weekend, I've been told. Let's move on though, because the ITV Evening News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. With the details this evening, here's Lucrezia Millarini.
Coming up, justice being seen to be done in England's first televised murder sentencing.
The enormity of your crime is profoundly shocking.
The judge branded Gemma Mitchell as devious as he sentenced her to at least 34 years for killing and beheading her friends. Also ahead, an awkward encounter for the new Prime Minister and what this patient told Rishi Sunak during an official hospital visit. And making a mint, the first coins featuring the new king roll off the production line. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
We certainly will. Well, it's sport time now. Mel Block joins us in the studio. Mel, a big day for Brighton tomorrow.
That's right. Graham Potter is back. He returns to the Amex with his new Chelsea side. He's now 9 games into the job and remains unbeaten. Meanwhile, Brighton's new boss, Roberto De Zerbi, is still looking for his first win.
We need one win to change this moment. Because this moment is not bad, but the result, when the results are not good, you are a bit sad, no?
Elsewhere in League Two, Gillingham could welcome back midfielders Sean Williams and Ollie Lee for their trip to Doncaster, while Crawley are back on the road after their midweek trip to Colchester. The Reds travel to Bradford City. Now, new research shows traditional ways of organising youth sport could be holding children back. It says that by organising sports teams solely by year group or age, late bloomers are being put up against children who are far more physically developed, while stronger and early maturing children aren't being challenged. Well, Andy Bonner has been looking at the idea of so-called bio-banding.
Zero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
In the world of youth sports, things can rarely seem equal. Young people are often grouped by their age. But different rates of physical development can lead to David and Goliath battles on the pitch. Now an idea to group people by their maturity is gaining traction. We asked regulars at Herne Bay Football Club Academy what they think.
If there's like a big age gap in between, like 3 years, then that's a bit different. But if you're like 1 year and you're same height and same like strength-wise, I think that you should be able to play with each other or against each other.
I'm 10. If they're like 8 years old, then that's all right. But if they're like 6 years old, I don't think that's like fair enough, because like they're too small and it's too young.
So-called biobanding is being trialled by groups including the Royal Ballet School. British Gymnastics and the Premier League are also on board.
If it looks really easy, then we'll make it harder, right?
At the Royal Ballet, year groups stay together, but teachers modify the class depending on what stage each student is at. The goal is to benefit both early and late developers, emphasising technical and tactical abilities and preventing injuries during growth spurts.
It's incredibly physically demanding. I guess you have the one thing of just being able to actually train, so being physically strong enough to deal with the amount of training that you need to do to reach that technical level. And then there's also trying to make improvements. We're obviously trying to train the dancers in the best way possible, so we want to kind of improve their physical qualities that improves their ability to then do the artistic things that they want to do.
Critics say biobanding isn't backed up by science, but the man who's leading the trial in the UK told me the research is encouraging.
I guess the benefit from the work in biobanding is that it allows them to better identify those differences and individual differences in growth and maturation, to identify those early developers who may be succeeding on the basis of physicality and trying to challenge them a little bit more, but also to maybe identify some of those late developing athletes who actually may not be the best at this moment, but may have the greatest promise for the future.
Former Southampton footballer Gareth Bale is one of those said to have benefited from biobanding during his youth career. Now more clubs and groups are coming on board with the idea in the hope of shaping a stronger generation of sportsmen and women. Andy Bonner, ITV News.
And finally, from me, a young racing car driver who stepped away from a horror crash, thankfully unhurt, has spoken of his return to the track. Will Martin from Hastings was competing at speeds of 100 miles an hour at Brands Hatch when he careered off the course. Sarah Gomm has more.
It was a crash that could have had the very worst of consequences. When Will Martin came off the track at the wheel of the Porsche he'd been racing, the £170,000 car travelled backwards at 100 miles an hour before stopping at the tyre wall, terrifyingly close to where several marshals had been standing.
I'm super grateful to come out the other side, very undamaged to what could have happened, and especially for the marshals. You know, I was heading straight for their post, and luckily there was something to stop me going through that. So yeah, no, it was a scary one, and for all my family, you know, it's not nice to see that, but you know, what matters is that everyone was safe.
19-year-old Will had been travelling around the Brands Hatch track in the first race of this Porsche Carrera Cup earlier this month. Both he and the marshals escaped unhurt, with Will freed from the wreckage after around 10 minutes.
The team did a great job getting the car back together, and we went out a few hours later. So yeah, no, for some people it can be very traumatic, but you know how big and much safety precautions there are now. You know, there's a lot to prevent that sort of thing from happening to people.
The young racing star, who's already claimed victories at both Brands Hatch and Thruxton, says the terror of the crash hasn't deterred him, and he's got his heart set on endurance racing.
We went straight from that weekend over to Portugal to test a brand new LMP3 car, which is sort of on the ladder to going to the 24-hour Le Mans, more endurance racing abroad and things like this. So, you know, that's where we're kind of looking to go next year. So no, it's definitely not put me off at all.
Sarah Gomm, ITV News.
What a lucky escape, and we wish Will all the best in his next race.
Yeah, goodness me, that was some crash, wasn't it? Crikey.
Incredible pictures.
Thanks, Mel.
Now, as we edge ever closer to November, it's the time of year when Royal British Legion volunteers go out with their poppies and their collection tins.
Yes, the charity, which supports veterans, military personnel and their families, continues to raise money around Armistice Day on the 11th of the 11th, marking the end of the First World War.
Well, that was, of course, more than 100 years ago now, but those fundraising say the poppy appeal is still as relevant today as ever. With more, here's Catherine Walker.
It's a symbol of hope and remembrance. Every autumn, the Poppy Appeal raises money for those who've served their country, including ex-soldiers like Stacey from Folkestone. She was diagnosed with PTSD in 2015 and says the charity got her through her darkest days.
I was asked to attend a course to, talk to other people about your experiences. So I packed my bag and off I went for a week, and the Royal British Legion staff that are based there were absolutely brilliant. We stood up, we talked about everything and they supported us through it. And at the end I got a CO's accommodation because I did so well there.
The Royal British Legion was set up in 1921 to help veterans after the First World War. At the launch of this year's appeal in London, welfare remains its guiding principle.
So the aim this year is to raise £50 million to go towards supporting the armed forces community. We have an incredible team of over 40,000 volunteers across the country who at this very moment in time are making their poppy boxes, organising their volunteers and getting their communities ready.
Collections for this year's Poppy Appeal will take place until Remembrance Sunday. As well as fundraising, it's also seen by many as a time for reflection.
For me, it's the remembrance of those that have passed and also the sacrifice of those that have gone to war or just not been with family for 6 months. They might have lost limbs. So it's just remembering everybody that's made that sacrifice.
For those that choose to wear them, the poppy is a show of support and hope for a peaceful future. A symbol the veterans here wore with pride. Catherine Walker, ITV News.
The Pathé Future tune, that was quite wonderful, wasn't it? Now, Pip joins us now. And Pip, while the mild conditions and the damp conditions, they're sort of not everyone's cup of tea, but for some, they're sort of perfect, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing screams autumn like a good woodland walk, and nothing screams autumn like a fantastic bit of fungi. They love these damp, mild conditions. Bear with me. I'm going to show you some really great photos now. Let's have a little look. So this first one, here we go. Here we go. It just screams autumn, doesn't it? Yeah, this is from Roy, taken on the South Downs. This is a cauliflower fungus. Wow. I think it looks like it would be more at home on the seabed. It reminds me of one of those sponges. Yeah. Sticking with the grocery theme, we have chicken of the woods. This comes from George Stack, taken in Eastbourne. We've got a carpet of common bonnet mushrooms, courtesy of Becca Collicott. Teeny tiny little ones there. Or how about this? An absolute classic from Tina Lawrence. I'm pretty sure the fairies aren't too far away.
Fairies got to come out of that, definitely.
Yeah.
Just quickly, a little bit of a personal thing for me. Bit of trick-or-treating going on tomorrow. Halloween weather, how's it shaping up?
Yeah, that's right. Of course, it's the last weekend of half term, isn't it? As you say, trick-or-treating probably happening over the next few evenings. Nothing too scary. I think certainly Saturday, Sunday evening look mostly dry and mild. Halloween itself, perhaps a bit more chance of rain, a little bit windier. Hold on to those witches' hats.
You say
Especially yours.
You say nothing too scary, but you've not seen my outfit. All I'm going to say. Let's get a check on the full weekend forecast with the details, of course. Here's Pip.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Still looking a little changeable then as we head into the weekend. Some spells of rain, quite breezy at times too, but where we see the best of the sunshine, still on the warm side. Out there at the moment, we're looking at a dry and clear start to the night. But as the night wears on, we will start to pull in more in the way of cloud, and then we'll see rain spilling its way northwards. Perhaps some persistent and heavy bursts mixed in there at times. But for all of us, another mild night, temperatures generally staying up in double figures. Tomorrow morning then a cloudy start, outbreaks of rain on the scene initially, but it won't be too long before that all clears away northwards. A few showers tucking in behind during the afternoon, but a lot of dry weather, some decent sunshine, and in that sunshine surprisingly warm for the end of October, with highs touching around 21 Celsius. These are your high water times for tomorrow. Then for Brighton, there 2 in the morning, 18 minutes past 2 in the afternoon. Beyond that then, through Saturday night and into Sunday, it looks as though we'll see a bit more rain coming our way. We've got this little wave on a front out towards the southeast there, and that's likely to push rain our way as we head into the second half of the weekend. So all staying a little bit on the changeable side, quite breezy at times too, and that continuing as we head into the new week. But you'll notice a slight shift in wind direction around to more of a southwesterly, and that will start to bring the temperatures down just a touch.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Now, lots happening this evening as the Royal Pavilion Ice Rink in Brighton opens its doors a day early to thank our very hard-working NHS staff.
Yes, hundreds of workers from across Sussex have taken to the ice as part of 2 special thank you sessions. Our reporter Derek Johnson is there for us now. Derek, it's looking pretty busy in the background. Are people there enjoying themselves?
Yes, there's going to be about 250 people in this session, another 250 people later. As you say, not paying customers, all members of the NHS, and all here as a thank you for their hard work. We're joined now by the CEO of the trust involved here. How did this come about? It's free for 500 members of staff.
Yeah, it's great. So our charity supported it, and they approached the company here that run it. They gifted this session to us, and we've had some sponsorship from one of our construction partners as well.
And people enjoying it by the look of it.
Oh, it's great. It's really nice to see people smiling and having a great time. And it's just our way of saying thank you, because our staff volunteers worked amazingly hard over the past 2 years and continue to do so to look after our patients.
Back to you in a minute. You won't be surprised, no, we were going to do it live on the ice, only to find that I can't ice skate. However, 2 very brave people who are on the ice are Bethany and Lee. You both work for the hospital's trust. How do you feel about this kind gesture?
It's absolutely amazing. Under the current pressures of the NHS, it's just really lovely to have something to look forward to and some fun on the ice.
If you don't mind me being rude, you have looked a little wobbly, Bethany.
I mean, I've looked forward to it until I get on the ice, and then I hold on to the side, and that's as far as I go.
Lee, you've not actually worked for the trust for all that long. How do you feel about this gesture?
Oh, it's fantastic. Didn't know these kind of things happen, but these things that get given to us from the NHS, more for it. But extremely grateful. You look reasonably nifty, if you don't mind me saying. You disagree? Thank you. Enjoy yourselves. Just back to you, Dr. Findlay. Seriously, this is a marvellous thing to have happened. Do you think often you work and don't realise how much efforts are appreciated?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, our staff are amazing. They do amazing things every day, but it's really tough just now, and we know that, we all want to do more for our patients. So little things like this just make people feel appreciated, and that goes a really long way.
And of course, all that hard work over the pandemic, you realise now people really are grateful.
Yeah, they are. And, we had lots of appreciation over the pandemic, but it's gone on for a long time, and our staff have really borne the brunt of that. So just little things to be able to say thank you like this go a long way.
I'll let you strap your skates on and get on the ice. Just remember, of course, it's not open to the public tonight. It does open from 10 o'clock tomorrow, and it will be here every day until January the 8th, except Christmas Day.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed, Derek. I'm glad he didn't go on the ice. We didn't want any injuries. We'll see him next week. And just to say, if you thought it was very blue there, it wasn't us or our cameraman, who was wonderful. It was the lights on the pavilion, and we could have blended in very well then. It looked very pretty.
We'd have been all right.
Would have been fine.
Blurred
into the background.
Totally lost. That's it from us. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.